Space, the final frontier.
Indeed, space will be the final expanse that humanity will explore in their quest for expansion. But where exactly will we place our first step? First off, we have to understand how planets can either sustain life or be made to. For a planet to be able to sustain life, at least as we know it, it needs to have passed 3 tests: distance, water, and atmosphere. The planet needs to have water, because life as we know it wouldn't live without it. It also needs to be far enough away that the water isn't turned into steam, but close enough that it isn't frozen solid. And finally, it needs to have a significant atmosphere. One that's not too thin so that it can't create enough pressure, but not too thick so that it crushes any life that tries to evolve there. Once these conditions are met, then we can consider human colonization. The most obvious choice for human expansion would be to colonize our own solar system. Planets that we could begin settling with some effort would include Mars, Venus, and even the Earth's closest natural satellite, the Moon. Most people would think colonizing Mars would be tricky, but in theory, it's not really as difficult as one would expect. Any colonization of Mars would need to be ready to handle the temperatures there. Since Mars doesn't have as thick of an atmosphere as Earth, the planet can't retain heat as easily, and the whole planet becomes stone cold as a result. This would need to be offset by the creation of a suitable atmosphere, or suits that can handle the radical temperature changes. If colonization of Mars were to be productive, we'd also need to maintain a suitable climate for growing crops, such as carrots, potatoes, onions, so that any colony on Mars wouldn't have to rely on shipments from Earth. A study by NASA showed that from what they know of Martian soil from the rovers and probes that they've sent down to the surface, it is actually possible for Earth-based plant species to grow and thrive in the soil on Mars. Mars will probably be the first place outside Earth that humanity will start to colonize. Even the Moon, our nearest celestial body, might possibly take second place to any human expansion efforts. After Mars, the Moon would be a more natural approach, but it would take lots of time, resources, and ingenuity before any colonization of Venus were to make any headway. Venus, or the evening star, is the second planet from the Sun and the planet most like Earth in size, density, and relative composition. Due to circumstances that occurred in the early age of the solar system, Venus was the victim of a runaway greenhouse effect, where greenhouse gases such as methane, or in this case carbon dioxide, began to pile up around the planet, trapping most of the heat captured by the Sun. This resulted in the temperature on Venus standing at a scorching 863 degrees Fahrenheit, more than hot enough to melt lead. This accumulation of greenhouse gases also increased the atmospheric pressure to about 92 times what we experience at sea level. If a person were to stand on the surface of Venus, they would immediately be crushed and cooked under the intense pressure and heat. This atmosphere would need to be either removed or, more desirably, transformed into something workable. Scientists have theorized bombarding the planet with hydrogen, the lightest element known to man, and iron aerosol, and having them react with the carbon dioxide in the atmosphere. This would transform the CO2 into elemental carbon, or pencil lead as we know it, and water. If we converted the entire Venetian atmosphere, scientists predict that, since Venus's surface is relatively flat compared to Earth, the water would cover about 80% of the surface, with only 10% of the actual amount of water compared to Earth. Venus also rotates in a sort of retrograde fashion, where its rotation on its axis, being clockwise, is the opposite of its orbit around the Sun, being counterclockwise. Other potential targets for human colonization could include the dwarf planet Ceres located in the asteroid belt, but due to its extremely small gravitational pull, even weaker than the Moon's, and its location, it could cause unwanted side effects and could cause unwanted damage. As we go beyond the asteroid belt, leaving the Sun's circumstellar habitable zone behind, we reach the outer gas giants, which surprisingly have tons of applications for human expansion. Scientists have theorized that Europa, one of the larger moons of Jupiter, may be home to an ocean of liquid water beneath the ice that covers its surface. This ocean could be home to microbial life, bacteria that live off of hydrothermal vents, similar to our own. If an ocean does exist, then drills to reach the ocean would need to be brought along on any manned or unmanned mission, as the ice is several miles thick. This could prove a challenge, as it could take several hours or days to drill to the ocean, and any life that could be down there could be hostile, or see us as a threat. If the Jovian system proves successful, then humanity could expand even further, colonizing the moons of Saturn as well as its rings. Titan, the largest of the Saturnian satellites, is also the only moon in the solar system who has a large, notable atmosphere, which could prove invaluable to human colonization efforts.